Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to discuss one of the shifts that's underway in the collective as we now move into August, where we have 5 outer planets all in fire and air signs. We have Jupiter in Leo, Saturn in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Aries, and Pluto in Aquarius. And this is a very important change that is now being felt more powerfully and clearly. And I wanted to dive a little deeper into what this means for you personally, especially because we have just moved through that influential basket, the basket configuration that was widely discussed because of its astrological significance. And you might be wondering, so what? Nothing changed. Nothing happened for me. I don't know if this is legit or real. And I want to go into more of the energies that are changing right now, even if they are more subtle under the surface or behind the scenes, because the fact that we have these 5 outer planets all in fire and air signs is exceptional. We haven't had this type of lineup before, and it means that we've been adjusting and moving into a new collective frequency. Consider it a new collective atmosphere where more of these energies are going to be more prominent. Fire and air signs are traditionally considered to be masculine, active, outward moving, expressive, enthusiastic, and fast-paced. This can stimulate more innovation, communication. It's easier to mobilize or get something moving because there is more momentum in the collective energy. And so I think that part of what we've been moving through is a very interesting initiation period here in 2026 as we start to see things in a new light, but more specifically, we start to see ourselves in a new way. Because with all these outer planets in very active expressions, we are now moving away from the big earth and water cycle that we were in that focused on emotional processing, security, stabilization, receptivity, observing, and healing work, just to name a few categories there. And so we've been in strong earth and water energies that were a very different experience from what we're moving into. And it means that the universe is signaling it's time to move forward from who you've been, but to be more precise in what that means for you specifically. And so for many people, there is a turning of the corner away from previous life priorities, from things that previously were essential to you. You might find you don't have interest anymore in some things that have traveled with you for a while, or you're not drawn to certain areas of life or concepts or ideals that once gave you life and felt very stable and true. You may be realizing you're coming into contact with some new versions of life that you would like to explore, new ways of living, new things you want to try or experiment with. Maybe you want to bring in more freedom into your business or into your professional world. Maybe you're seeking a new way to balance your professional life and your personal life. Maybe you're opening up to new ways of using your talents and your gifts. Some things that you've just been thinking about or contemplating are now presenting themselves as being real possibilities and things that you could actually do. And there could be a sense of, yes, this could happen for me. And I realize what it would change and shift in my everyday reality. Maybe you're taking inventory and stock of how you've lived your life up to this point in your journey. And you're seeing some repetitious themes that have traveled with you all your life. And you're realizing that on some level of your being, especially at a soul level, you can feel that they are completing. They are phasing out. It's just like it's drifting away and it's no longer in your energy field. So again, these could be quite subtle messages that you're feeling and picking up on, but once you tune into them with a certain level of precision, you see a truth. You see a point of clarity here that signifies how you're changing and how you're growing. So these could be background energies that are coming in closer. It's like zooming in, and they rush in and arrive, and something hits your awareness that's quite significant and big. Maybe this has been occurring for you slowly. Maybe it's just a path you've been on and there's been an increase in these messages, but we are moving away from a version of life as we've known it. And this can be quite exciting and invigorating, especially when you feel empowered and you're in your creator energy of fully owning what you want to create next. There can also be a recognition of loss or sadness at what no longer appeals to you, what you no longer want and is drifting away and ending. There can also be a void in the energy where you're wondering, well, what is next? What is going to present itself in these new collective energies that will appeal to me and will have my name on it? So, of course, you could have a mix of any and all of these feelings and so much more. I think that is part of what is being stirred up at this time, is that we are moving between significant chapters in our lives, and there can be a mix of feelings and emotions that we're dancing between. There can be a lot that feels like it's moving you forward, it's invigorating and exciting, and then there can be an acknowledgement of what is closing out and ending that has served a purpose on your journey. It has run its course. It has provided you with what you needed for that phase of your journey, and now it's time to move on. And that's really the overarching message here from the universe, that with all 5 of these outer planets in fire and air signs, it is time to move forward, and the pace of life is changing. And I think of it as when you get on the freeway or the highway, there is typically a set speed limit. Except in Germany when you're on the Autobahn. But there's a set speed limit of the pace you're meant to travel. Well, the universe is saying that that speed limit is increasing. It is being revved up. So maybe, yes, you're now going to be on the Autobahn in Germany with no speed limit. But there's going to be a sense here that the pace of life is continuing to rev up. And because of that, what is needed from us and expected from us is also shifting. And so depending on your natal astrology chart, this could feel like finally things are coming to life, especially if you have strong fire and air signs in your chart. The fire and air signs are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius energies. They are being newly invigorated with what is possible, with what you're ready to create and move ahead with. And you might sense that you feel ready to go and naturally energized with these outer planets moving into these elements. Then conversely, if you have more earth and water energy in your chart, you could be feeling this change quite differently, because this is where it's time to speed up and keep pace with these changes. And that might not be your normal MO or how you prefer to go about your day, your week, your life. And so the earth and water signs are sensing that a lot is happening perhaps too quickly. It could feel quite overwhelming and big. You might need more time to process and think it through. And perhaps you're also observing. You're in a place of just watching things and seeing what happens, and you're not fully in this fast lane of developments yet. And of course, this is going to be specific to each person. And so you would want to look at your natal astrology chart and assess how much energy you have in fire and air and how much energy you have in earth and water signs. And so regardless of what that may be, the universal message is clear now that life as we know it is accelerating. And this is where we're moving into the rise of active consciousness, active living, and greater participation in your own world that could be very exciting and inspiring. And it's also bringing about some interesting levels of acknowledgement here, because one of the first things that came to mind as I was tuning into these energies and feeling into them is that our sense of self is shifting. Our individual self-identities are moving forward into new terrain. And so we're leaving behind the previous chapters that have defined us. And so what has defined you over the past 15 to 20 years? I'm actually being drawn to 2008, 2009 when Pluto moved into Capricorn, but trust whatever timeline you want to assess. But it's looking at what was such a big part of your journey that it became integrated in who you are. And it's important to acknowledge some of those themes for yourself, because those are also the themes that are evolving and changing. And when you think about your self-identity, your sense of self is meant to be growing and shifting throughout your life. And this is connected to your astrological sun sign, which is, of course, where your sun is in the astrological wheel. That's often how people first come into the world of astrology, is saying, I'm an Aquarius, I'm a Taurus, I'm a Pisces. And so you learn about who you are through some of those main themes. But at a soul level, you are everything. You are expansive, eternal, and an always evolving frequency. And in order to be on Earth, you have to take a physical body. You have to be born on a certain day. You have to embody a certain energy field with physical traits and DNA and emotions and a brain and a driver's license and all these things that create your individual sense of self. And so we start to think that that is who I am, and therefore that's who I will always be. But with this energy shift, there is a loosening up, a loosening of what has been tightly woven within you. Because I'm seeing this as a weaving of energies of what you have been weaving into yourself over the past 15 years that provided an essential understanding of who you are. And so this is a cycle that's loosening up that self-identity. It's asking you to assess what is really true for you now after maybe years of being in a certain role or having a certain self-understanding. What have you identified with that, again, served a purpose and was important because it also beautifully reflected the energies you were in? And so you were living life with those energies, allowing them to guide your journey, to direct you, to bring up whatever was important for you to learn, experience, understand, move through, and heal. And now the energy is changing, and whatever has been woven into you is loosening. And I'm actually seeing this now as different patches on a quilt, where there are some patches that certainly represent a time and place in your life. And now we're moving on to the next patch. I know nothing about sewing. I know nothing about quilting. I'm just using the visuals here, that there's something that is being woven together with all these incoming energies that are bringing about new areas of life creation and self-identity. And so we are meant to loosen what we thought and perhaps unconsciously expected would always define us. The energy now is asking you to evolve that and expand it so that you can hold in your energetic container, especially in your light body, more of your true essence now that I'm seeing as very light filled. Because I feel like if we look at this as the tight threads holding something together, and then they start to loosen and separate, there's things that fall away quite quickly. There's things that you might experience are unraveling rapidly and is allowing you to move forward or move on. I'm definitely feeling this as an energetic experience. It could even be something that's occurring at night while you sleep or rest. It could be when the brain is not in full participation of what's going on, but your energy body is unraveling or removing some things that you no longer need to hold or carry. And it's setting you free. And what I'm seeing, it's so beautiful. It looks like all of these light bodies coming online, and they're twinkling, glowing, and sparkling like fireflies at night. And they are dancing and alive, and they have been freed from that cocoon, if you will, that chrysalis, that healing chrysalis that was essential on the journey. And now the energy is expansive, light-filled, and newly creative in a very beautiful way. And there's a recognition of what you've been deeply healing and why. There's also recognition of what you were holding in your emotional body that was heavy or dense. I'm also seeing that for many people, the energy is releasing and shifting across multiple timelines that are occurring simultaneously now. And so there are other states of awakening and freedom that are rippling through from this current timeline into other lifetimes and timelines that are also setting you free from something. So trust if that resonates. Don't make it fit if it doesn't. But overall, there is a rising in personal sovereignty here that has been earned. That's what I'm hearing. It's been earned. Not that you have to earn your sovereignty, but that it was something you had to work through consciously and intentionally to remove and close out energies that your soul wanted to experience, but didn't have to keep traveling with. And that's part of the completion here. I'm also seeing that these light bodies, they're like rising up, and I see them about 3 feet above the earth, that they are kind of levitating in their purity and in their essence. And that part of what they're doing, oh, this is so crazy. The light body energies here are in a very beautiful, pristine alignment with the frequencies of the outer planets in fire and air. And so I see this levitation of the light body that is moving you forward with greater ease and trust in what you are creating and what you desire next, because the light body is a frequency match for all 5 of these outer planets in the fire and air signs. And so there's a natural harmonious support that is going back and forth. It's moving you ahead, and it's out of the mind. Okay, this is important. It's interesting because it isn't neurological. It isn't based on what your brain is expecting or planning. And I'm tuning in to get more information here because I feel there's a lot of energy around this. Okay, so I'm seeing that it's coming from the higher mind, and that it's also being channeled in from other higher frequencies that you might find you naturally resonate with now. And so you might find that you're in a greater connection with higher frequency beings, whether they reside on other planets or they are in other realms. This could feel like a stronger connection to your angels and your guides, whatever that means for you, whatever those relational dynamics are. They are more present and supportive at this time, because now you are at a higher frequency where they can connect with you and allow you to trust your intuition even more. And so part of the change of these outer planets in the fire and air signs is that we are no longer overly relying upon the brain to run the show. We're moving into the innate intelligence of the light body and of all your energy systems, which I feel is actually governed more by energetic intelligence and intuition that isn't always explainable. And so part of this cycle that we're in is we are learning to live life with these new sensory connections. We're learning how to navigate our daily world and to trust the energy that we're feeling and sensing, even when the mind doesn't understand it or we don't have that logical grasp on why. There's a feeling here that's rising up, but it's not just a temporary passing emotion. It's more of a rising feeling that is certainly coming from the fire sign elements of what you have to move towards, what you need to create, why you need to do something, or why you're drawn to something and it feels bigger than you. This is actually beautiful confirmation that you are alive and trusting more of your light body intelligence and working with that higher consciousness that is now more present. And that's what it feels like. It feels like this interesting integration of the light body and the human body, where these higher sensory modalities are very intelligent. They're very wise. They are now online. They've been plugged in and we've been initiated in what this means and what this looks like. And so it also means that part of the changes and shifts you're feeling in your life is a confirmation of this new higher active consciousness. And so it's also elevating you out of old patterns and programming that were rooted in survival, healing, security, stability, role playing, if you will, where you had to be a certain thing for certain people, and perhaps any other areas of life that you're feeling or sensing here that's rising to your awareness. This is what's moving us into a new era of humanity. And this also beautifully affirms the 400-year change that's happening for humanity that has been tracked through the human design system. Now, human design is an elaborate system that is composed of astrology, the I Ching, which is the 64 hexagrams that match up with the genetic code and body gates in human design. It also involves the chakra system. And human design adds in the mechanics of your energy. It's how your energy is designed to work. And so human design gives you further insight into your individual energy that is quite specific the more you go into it. When you start learning human design, you start with the 5 types, the 5 energy types, as they're called: generators, manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. And those 5 energy types are similar to starting by understanding the 12 sun signs or 12 astrology signs in the astrological wheel, where it's just a starting point to the energy. And then the deeper you go into your chart, the more specific it becomes. And then that's how it reveals more of your individual energy field. And so human design is a very elaborate system. It's very complex. It has a lot of depth. And human design not only supports understanding who you are at an individual level, but it also provides insights into what's happening in the collective. And human design has noted that the overall collective human energy is changing in 2027 as a 400-year cycle ends and a brand new 400-year cycle begins. And this changing of the eras is a very big deal. And of course, it beautifully coincides with these astrological shifts that we've been discussing, with these outer planets now in fire and air signs, and how that's changing the collective atmosphere. And so we have some very strong messages here of the changes that are happening for all of us us in order to direct us into more of our individual selves, who you came here to be, how to be fully conscious and aware of your energy, what it means to live life based on your energy, and to allow that to direct your life, perhaps for the first time ever in your life. And so in human design, we're moving into the era of the individual. And this is a really big deal. Again, it's a 400-year cycle that's changing over right now in 2026 into 2027. And it's moving you into more of who you came here to be that probably has been hidden, misunderstood, unacknowledged, and unrealized. And so the best thing that we can do for ourselves at this time is to continue to understand how our energy works at a core level, and to be more aware of who you are outside of societal expectations, programming, and your own patterns that were needed in order for you to survive. So in other words, we're moving away from the survival-based programming that has certainly been a very influential part of our lives into sovereignty-based living that focuses on the era of the individual. And this is a big part of July and August. July and August are bringing up to your conscious awareness what is complete and phasing out, what is no longer a match for you, what is no longer energetically connected to the truth of who you are. And honestly, for some people, this can show up as a crisis, a big crisis of who am I? What do I want? What is important to me? And this crisis is actually a beautiful initiation point and a beginning point to perhaps your next hero's journey or your next heroine's journey of going into what are the answers to these questions? What is going to be supportive of me going forward and is bringing me into a brand new state of personal awareness and self-understanding that is probably happening for the first time in your life, or at least in this lifetime. Because now these planetary energies are saying it's time to come alive based on the truth of who you are. It's time to fully own your sovereign gifts, your true empowerment, your creative spirit. It's time to innovate based on what you want your life to be and to break out of any molds or any traditional roles you thought you had to play. And with these kinds of significant changes, it's the early adapters who go first. The pioneers, those of you who are interested in this level of personal understanding and higher consciousness, you are the ones to go first. You are the way showers. You are the ones who provide an example. You're the one who does something that could stop people in their tracks, that can break the mold, that can create big life changes for yourself and others around you. You are the way showers who are moving into a new experience of yourself that also demonstrates to others that they can do the same should they choose to or if they want to. And the bigger picture here is that we're moving forward into this new era that can help support developing a civilization that's built upon conscious individuals instead of unconscious collectives. I mean, that's a big deal. We're moving into new ways of living that I feel are very much connected to new earth values that support civilization and reality based on conscious individuals who are sovereign and empowered, who have cleared enough karma, who have matured, who have understood the universal spiritual laws, if you will, who understand cause and effect, who are very intentional with the choices they make and the words they say, who understand where to go with their energy and where not to go with their energy. This is about a revival at an individual level of what it means to be conscious, sovereign, and empowered, and how then that energy comes up against the masses or other collective energies that are unconscious, who aren't there yet, but who will be. In fact, that can be part of how this plays out over especially the next 3 to 5 years, is that more and more people are going to want this for themselves and move into this new experience of their reality. But they have to choose it, and they have to be willing to make the choices and changes that are necessary to be more conscious in their life, however that looks for each person. So if we break it down, let's just break it down in a very simple way by looking at all 5 of these planets. So right now, Jupiter is in Leo until next June 2027. And Jupiter in Leo expands the creative confidence to be who you are and to wholeheartedly express yourself from an empowered place. Saturn in Aries is where you have developed discipline and maturity to be personally responsible for your energy and to trust your own self-leadership. Uranus in Gemini is the energy of liberation and revolution that's going to switch up and change how we learn, connect, communicate, and speak. And it's also bringing in more of this rapid exchange of ideas that leads us forward. Neptune in Aries is where we are awakening to more of our sovereign self and our spiritual identity. And it's giving us more of the courage to live authentically without being overly concerned with what everyone else is doing. And then Pluto in Aquarius is transforming society by bringing about new forms of empowered individuals and communities who embrace the same values and who are committed to living from these principles. Of course, each of these 5 descriptions is quite general, and it could be in the beginning stages for some people and further along for others. But there's some common threads here, and one of them is that each of these planetary influences can really support you in becoming more fully yourself. So not less than, not removing who you were, not thinking you have to fit in, but there's a shift in what it means to belong. You innately belong. You are innately a part of humanity, and your energy matters. And so we start to value that at an individual level. We value our differences, our diversity, how we each bring something to the table that can be valuable and appreciated. And it's this authentic self-expression that becomes what strengthens the collective, that brings more people in, that allows us to say, yes, I'm interested, or yes, let's discuss this. It opens up conversations. It opens up the energy with this movement. I'm also seeing that it opens up fresh energy in the toroidal field for all of us, that we have that fresh momentum flowing and moving through us, especially since fire and air together move quickly and they take whatever is being discussed and move it into action. And so there is a big shift here. And one thing to acknowledge is how it's showing up for you. And so here's a few other things you can evaluate. As we move more fully into the era of the individual, we are then moving away from relying upon external authority, inherited identities, expectations, and traditional pathways. We're also no longer as interested in established systems or being cookie cutters, fitting in a way that actually suppresses who you are. And I feel that for many of you, you've known this your whole life. And a part of you could feel, I am here for this. This is why I'm here. This is what it's all about for me. And so you are a very strong force and powerful contributor to this era of the individual. And so that would be one way to understand this big astrology here of July, of that basket we've been discussing, as well as what we're moving through in August, especially with the sun in Leo adding to the fiery equation. And then you can also pull in the North Node in Aquarius and South Node in Leo, which are closing out those previous self-identities and who we thought we had to be, especially to be loved. That would be the South Node in Leo. who you had to be for recognition, praise, acknowledgement, love. Anything false is going to fade away and be removed. And then that North Node in Aquarius is supporting you in developing more of your authentic individual energy field. Now, I discussed this more in an online webinar I did live that is now available. And in this webinar, I talk about the 12 high-level changes we are moving through into 2029. And this is very important to understand because this is how our lives are changing. This is the shifts that are happening in the workplace, in business, in families, in our personal lives. These are the changes that are affecting humanity as this frequency comes online and becomes more obvious. And so I did this program. It's called Ascending Between Eras, which talks about the overlapping astrology, human design, galactic frequencies, and collective consciousness energies of right now. And this is a shift that's occurring for all of us. But as I mentioned, many of you are leaders, pioneers, way showers. You're here first. You're the first one in your whole office who would even be looking at this information, or you're the first one in your family or in your community who is aware of this. And so that's important. Like, you're coming to this information for a reason, because you're going to find that once you learn more about these high-level changes, you're going to find yourself in conversations with people about the shifts that are happening. And so because many of you are mentors or guides, you're going to be sharing with those you teach and those you guide what they need to adjust or change in their business, for example. You're going to know what other people need to know. And that's how this energy works, is that it gets shared in discussion and everyday conversations. That's actually how it spreads the fastest. We all know that word of mouth is essential to our business, to our family, to our friendships. And so this is why it's important to note what is happening, because you're going to find you'll be discussing it with people, and it's very timely. So I just want to bring this presentation to your awareness. It's called Ascending Between Eras. It's available now to watch, 90 minutes long. And it also has 44 tips and energy guidance practices that support you through this grand cycle of change. I'm really passionate about this information. It's really important. For those of you who already know human design, we are shifting away from the era of the generator into the era of the projector. And that is a big deal, because now projectors are going to be truly guiding and leading based on their knowledge, what they have learned about various systems and areas of expertise. The projectors are going to be guiding people forward on their path and helping them determine how to use their energy, new ways to use their energy, and what is essential, just to name a few things. So this is a big deal, and this is all part of the astrology of right now as we move through the rest of 2026 and into 2027. And so the sooner you have this information, the more it's going to make sense, and the more things are going to start clicking for you, because now you're going to know what to direct your energy towards that matters, what is essential for not only 2026, but the rest of the decade and going forward. So that's why I love giving this information when I come across it. And I hope it really supports you with anything you are moving through now that is a big choice point. Now, keep in mind, some of you were at the live presentation of Ascending Between Eras. So you may already have this information in your online account on my website. If so, go ahead and log back in and rewatch it if you'd like. But just know that this is exactly what we're moving through. This is the change in frequency that's happening. And now it's especially relevant with all 5 of these outer planets in fire and air signs. I will have the link and information for you in the podcast description if you want to check it out. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast episode. As always, I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday for a new episode. So see you on Wednesday, where we discuss what's going on here in the week ahead. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you back here soon.